In the heart of the European continent, the winding Rhine and Danube rivers, like two long historical cords, connect a land brimming with legend and transformation. Here, forests are deep and castles abound. Here, philosophical thought shines like stars and industry hums. This land has nurtured countless titans who influenced the world and has also been swept by storms that engulfed the globe. It was once the core of the Holy Roman Empire and a symbol of Prussian iron will. It underwent the baptism of the Reformation and endured the trauma of 2 world wars. It was once divided by a high wall and then moved towards reunification in the call for peace. This is Germany, a nation full of contradictions, resilience, and creativity. Its history is both an epic of glory and splendor and a mirror for reflection and warning. Now, let us journey together into the long river of German history, explore its footprints from ancient times to the present, and feel its tumultuous destiny. Chapter 1: The Call of the Teutoburg Forest and the Roman Empire's Frontier, Antiquity, 962 AD. The dawn of Germany was shrouded in the vast forests and swamps of Central Europe. Our earliest systematic understanding of this land largely stems from the Roman historian Tacitus's Germania. In the 1st century AD, Tacitus depicted the various Germanic tribes living east of the Rhine and north of the Danube. They were fair-haired, blue-eyed, tall, Chongshang Yongwu, admired martial prowess, lived simply, and possessed unique social structures and belief systems. These tribes, such as the Suebi, Cherusei, and Batavi, were not a unified people but a collection of numerous groups, similar in language and culture, yet often warring amongst themselves. They lived by agriculture and animal husbandry, elected tribal leaders, and formed military alliances in times of war. Their deities, like the chief god Woden, Odin, and the thunder god Donner, Thor, reflected their reverence for natural forces and their worship of war. The northward expansion of the Roman Empire met staunch resistance in the lands of the Germanic peoples. In 9 AD, the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest erupted. A confederation of Germanic tribes, led by Arminius, annihilated nearly 3 Roman legions under Varus. This battle is considered a crucial victory for Germanic independence. It not only halted the Roman Empire's advance deep into Germanic territory, but also established the Rhine and Danube as the boundary between Roman civilization and the Germanic world for centuries to come. The Romans built fortifications along this border, Limes Germanicus, and established military strongholds such as Cologne, Colonia Claudia Era Agrippinensium, Trier, Augusta Treverorum, and Mainz, Mogontiacum, which later became important cities in German history. Although the Roman Empire failed to conquer the vast Germanic regions, Roman civilization's influence gradually permeated Germanic society through trade, cultural exchange, and even Germanic peoples joining the Roman army. Roman law, administration, construction techniques, and later, Christianity, all had a profound impact on the Germanic tribes. From the 4th century AD, Europe entered the so-called migration period, Völkerwanderung. Pressured by nomadic peoples from the east, such as the Huns, and influenced by climate change and internal population growth, various Germanic tribes began large-scale migrations westward and southward. The Goths, Vandals, Franks, Burgundians, Anglo-Saxons, and others surged like a tide into and eventually dismantled the increasingly weakened Western Roman Empire. Among these migrating Germanic tribes, the Franks played a pivotal role. Initially settling in the lower Rhine region, they gradually expanded their power. In the late 5th century, Clovis I united the Frankish tribes, established the Frankish kingdom, and converted to Roman Catholicism. This move not only won the Frankish kingdom the support of the Roman Church and Gallo-Roman aristocracy, but also laid the foundation for the future political and cultural landscape of Western Europe. The Merovingian dynasty, to which Clovis belonged, ruled the Frankish kingdom for centuries, but later, royal power declined, and the influence of the mayors of the palace grew. In the 8th century, mayor of the palace Charles Martel, known as the Hammer, defeated the invading Arab forces at the Battle of Tours, or Poitiers, halting the expansion of Islamic forces into the heartland of Western Europe. His son, Pepin the Short, with the support of the Pope, deposed the last Merovingian king and established the Carolingian dynasty. Pepin's son was the renowned Charlemagne, or Charles the Great. Charlemagne was a monarch of great ambition and talent. Through a series of military conquests, he expanded the Frankish kingdom to an unprecedented scale, encompassing present-day France, Germany, northern Italy, and the Low Countries. He conquered the Saxons, incorporating them into the Frankish kingdom and forcing their conversion to Christianity. He defeated the Avars, securing the eastern frontiers. He intervened in Italian affairs, protecting the Pope. On Christmas Day, 800 AD, Pope Leo III crowned Charlemagne in Rome, bestowing upon him the title, Emperor of the Romans. This event marked the nominal revival of the Western Roman Empire and laid the legal foundation for the later Holy Roman Empire. The Frankish Empire under Charlemagne underwent a series of reforms in administration, law, culture, and education, promoting the so-called Carolingian Renaissance, which had a profound impact on the development of European civilization. However, the vast empire Charlemagne built disintegrated soon after his death due to internal divisions. In 843 AD, Charlemagne's three grandsons signed the Treaty of Verdun, dividing the empire into three parts: West Francia, the predecessor of the Kingdom of France, Middle Francia, and East Francia. East Francia, roughly comprising the German-speaking regions east of the Rhine, is considered the precursor to the later German state. Its inhabitants were primarily descendants of Germanic tribes such as the Saxons, Franks, Eastern, Bavarians, and Alemanni, Swabians. The early kings of East Francia, such as Louis the German, focused on consolidating royal power and defending against external threats from Vikings, Magyars, and others. However, the power of local dukes, such as the Duke of Saxony, Duke of Bavaria, Duke of Swabia, grew steadily, posing a challenge to central royal authority. The Carolingian dynasty's rule in East Francia ended in 911 AD, after which the nobles of East Francia began to elect their kings. Henry I, Henry the Fowler, Duke of Saxony, was elected king in 919 AD, founding the Saxon dynasty, also known as the Ottonian dynasty. Henry I successfully repelled Magyar invasions and strengthened the kingdom's internal unity. His son, Otto the Great, continued his work and elevated it to new heights. Otto I decisively defeated the Magyars at the Battle of Lechfeld in 955 AD, eliminating a serious threat to the kingdom's eastern flank. He also actively intervened in Italian affairs and, in 962 AD, was crowned emperor in Rome by Pope John XII, establishing the Holy Roman Empire. This event is generally regarded as a significant milestone in German history, marking the formal formation of the medieval German state. Chapter 2: The Glory and Strife of the Holy Roman Empire, 962 AD, 1517 AD. Otto I's coronation as emperor marked the beginning of the Holy Roman Empire. In its nearly 1,000-year history, this empire was nominally the successor to the ancient Roman Empire and the secular leader of the Christian world, but its territory, power, and structure underwent complex and profound evolution. The emperors of the Ottonian dynasty, such as Otto II and Otto III, attempted to build the empire into a unified and powerful Christian polity, with Rome as its center. However, they faced numerous challenges from Italian nobles, the Byzantine Empire, and internal princes. Following the Saxon dynasty, the Salian dynasty, 1024 to 1125, took the scepter of the Holy Roman Empire. Emperors of this period, such as Conrad II, Henry III, and Henry IV, continued to strive for strengthening central authority and engaged in a fierce struggle with the papacy over the right of investiture, known as the investiture controversy. Pope Gregory VII asserted that church power was superior to secular power and forbade secular rulers from appointing bishops. Henry IV, on the other hand, insisted that the emperor had the right to appoint bishops within the empire, as bishops were also important feudal lords of the empire. This conflict reached its climax in 1077 when Henry IV was forced to travel to Canossa Castle in Italy and wait barefoot in the snow for 3 days to repent before the Pope, an event known as the Walk to Canossa. Although Henry IV eventually received papal absolution, the investiture controversy did not end there. It lasted for decades, finally concluding with the signing of the Concordat of Worms in 1122. This agreement somewhat delineated the authority of the Church and the Emperor in episcopal appointments, but effectively weakened the Emperor's control over the Church and indirectly fostered the power of German local princes. The Hohenstaufen dynasty, 1138 to 1254, was another important period in the history of the Holy Roman Empire. Emperors of this era, such as Frederick I, Frederick Barbarossa, Henry VI, and Frederick II, were rulers of great personality and ambition. Frederick I attempted to restore imperial authority in Italy, launching multiple expeditions and clashing fiercely with the cities of the Lombard League. He emphasized the importance of Roman law and formally added the word holy to the empire's name. Frederick II was a learned and open-minded monarch with a keen interest in science, culture, and art, known as Stupor Mundi, wonder of the world. However, he spent much of his time in the Kingdom of Sicily and Italy, paying relatively little attention to German domestic affairs, which further allowed the power of German princes to expand. Frederick II's conflicts with the Pope were also exceptionally intense, and he was excommunicated multiple times. After the fall of the Hohenstaufen dynasty, the Holy Roman Empire experienced a great interregnum lasting over 20 years, 1254 to 1273, with no universally recognized emperor. During this period, Germany's political fragmentation intensified, with princes ruling their territories independently. It was not until 1273, when Rudolf I of Habsburg was elected King of Germany, though not crowned emperor, that the Great Interregnum ended. However, subsequent emperors' authority was greatly diminished, and the empire effectively evolved into a loose confederation of numerous independent duchies, margraviates, bishoprics, free cities, and other entities. Despite the decline of central power, medieval Germany achieved significant accomplishments in economic and cultural spheres. Cities, especially those with autonomous rights as imperial free cities, Reichsstadt, like Cologne, Hamburg, Lübeck, Nuremberg, and Augsburg, gradually rose. These cities became centers of crafts, commerce, and finance. Along the Baltic and North Sea coasts, the Hanseatic League, led by Lübeck, controlled trade in Northern Europe from the 13th to the 17th centuries, its influence extending to England, Norway, Russia, and beyond. The Hanseatic League possessed its own fleet, trading posts, and legal system, making it a powerful commercial and political force in medieval Europe. In rural areas, the feudal manorial economy still predominated, with peasants dependent on feudal lords. However, with the development of a commodity economy and population growth, peasants in some regions began to strive for more freedom and rights. Meanwhile, the German knightly class played an important role in the High Middle Ages, forming the core of feudal armies and developing a unique chivalric culture. Culturally, medieval Germany was profoundly influenced by Christianity. Churches and monasteries were the main centers of culture and education. Romanesque and Gothic architectural art left many masterpieces in Germany, such as Cologne Cathedral and Speyer Cathedral. Universities also began to emerge, such as Heidelberg University, founded in 1386, and Cologne University, founded in 1388, which promoted the development of theology, law, medicine, and humanities. German literature also gradually developed, with heroic epics like the Nibelungenlied and lyric poetry Minnesang. In 1356, Emperor Charles IV issued the Golden Bull. This important legal document established the system of 7 prince-electors for electing the King of Germany, i.e., the future Holy Roman Emperor. These 7 electors included 3 ecclesiastical electors, the Archbishops of Mainz, Cologne, and Trier, and 4 secular electors, the King of Bohemia, the Count Palatine of the Rhine, the Duke of Saxe-Wittenberg, and the Margrave of Brandenburg. The Golden Bull legally recognized the privileges of the electors, further consolidating Germany's electoral system and fragmented political landscape, but it also provided a relatively stable framework for the empire's political operation. Entering the 15th century, the Holy Roman Empire faced internal and external troubles. Internally, conflicts among princes and challenges to imperial authority continued unabated. Externally, the expansion of the Ottoman Empire posed a serious threat to the empire's southeast. The Habsburg family, through marriage, inheritance, and other means, gradually became one of the most powerful royal houses in Germany and even Europe, long occupying the throne of the Holy Roman Empire. Maximilian I reigned 1493 to 1519, attempted imperial reforms to strengthen central institutions, but with little success. In the social and intellectual spheres of this period, seeds of change were also germinating. Humanist ideas began to spread in Germany, questioning scholastic philosophy and the authority of the Church. The invention of the printing press, Johannes Gutenberg, around 1450, greatly facilitated the dissemination of knowledge and the exchange of ideas. Social contradictions also intensified, with growing discontent among peasants and urban poor against feudal exploitation and church corruption. All this laid the groundwork for the impending Reformation. When Martin Luther posted his 95 Theses on the door of the Wittenberg Castle Church in 1517, he ignited not just a protest against indulgences, but a conflagration that would thoroughly change the course of German, and indeed, all of European history. Chapter 3: Reformation, 30 Years' War, and the Rise of Prussia, 1517 to 1789. On October 31st, 1517, Martin Luther, a professor of theology at the University of Wittenberg, dissatisfied with the Roman Curia's sale of indulgences, published his 95 Theses, openly questioning the Pope's authority and the efficacy of indulgences. This act is generally regarded as the beginning of the Protestant Reformation. Luther's core ideas were justification by faith alone, sola fide, meaning that salvation is achieved solely through faith in God, not through good works or the intercession of the Church. He also emphasized the Bible as the sole authority for faith, sola scriptura, and advocated translating the Bible into German so that ordinary believers could read it directly. Luther's ideas, rapidly spread by the new printing press, resonated strongly throughout Germany. Many princes, burghers, and peasants supported Luther's propositions, driven by both devout faith and dissatisfaction with the Roman Curia's interference in German affairs and extraction of wealth. In 1521, at the Diet of Worms, Luther, facing Holy Roman Emperor Charles V and papal representatives, refused to retract his views, uttering the famous, though perhaps apocryphal, words, "Here I stand, I can do no other. God help me, amen." He was consequently excommunicated and declared a heretic, but received protection from Frederick III, Elector of Saxony, Frederick the Wise. During his seclusion in Wartburg Castle, Luther translated the New Testament into German, which had a profound impact on the unification and standardization of the German language. The Reformation was not a smooth process. It triggered intense social upheaval and conflict. The German Peasants' War of 1524 to 1525 was the largest peasant uprising of the Reformation era. Inspired by Luther's ideas about Christian freedom, peasants demanded the abolition of serfdom and a reduction in taxes. However, Luther himself condemned the peasants' violence and supported the princes in suppressing the uprising. The Peasants' War ended in failure, with tens of thousands of peasants massacred. The Reformation also led to a religious schism in Germany. Princes and cities supporting Luther formed the Schmalkaldic League to oppose the Catholic emperor and princes. After several religious wars, the two sides finally signed the Peace of Augsburg in 1555. This treaty established the principle of cuius regio, ius religio, whose realm, his religion, meaning that princes had the right to determine the official faith, Catholicism or Lutheranism, of their territories, and their subjects had to comply. This treaty temporarily eased religious conflicts, but also formally recognized Germany's religious division, further weakening the unity of the Holy Roman Empire. However, the Peace of Augsburg did not resolve all issues, particularly concerning the rising Calvinist faith. Religious contradictions, intertwined with political and territorial disputes among princes, eventually culminated in a catastrophic war in the early 17th century, the 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648. The war initially began with the Bohemian Protestant revolt against Habsburg Catholic rule, the defenestration of Prague, but soon escalated into an international conflict involving most of Germany and much of Europe. Denmark, Sweden, France, and other countries successively entered the war, engaging in a prolonged struggle against the Habsburg Emperor and his allies. The war caused devastating destruction within Germany, with a sharp decline in population, economic collapse, and many regions reduced to scorched earth. The atrocities of mercenaries, plagues, and famines inflicted immense suffering on the German people. The Peace of Westphalia, signed in 1648, ended the 30 Years' War. This treaty had a profound impact on the German and European landscape. It reaffirmed the cuius regio, ius religio principle of the Peace of Augsburg and included Calvinism as a legally recognized faith. It formally recognized the sovereignty of German principalities in internal and foreign affairs, further hollowing out the Holy Roman Emperor's power, rendering the empire effectively a confederation of independent states. France and Sweden gained some German territories and became guarantors of imperial affairs, enhancing their power in Europe. The independence of Switzerland and the Netherlands was formally recognized. The 30 Years' War severely set back German unification, but also created conditions for the rise of some states. Among them, the development of Brandenburg Prussia was particularly noteworthy. The electorate of Brandenburg, located in northeastern Germany, was initially a relatively poor and backward region. The Hohenzollern family had ruled Brandenburg since the 15th century. After the 30 Years' War, Frederick William, the Great Elector, reigned 1640 to 1688. Through astute domestic and foreign policies, dedicated himself to economic recovery and development, established a strong standing army, and strengthened central authority. He laid a solid foundation for the rise of Brandenburg Prussia. In 1701, Frederick William's son, Frederick I, with the permission of the Holy Roman Emperor, was crowned king in Prussia, König in Prussian, formally establishing the Kingdom of Prussia. The Duchy of Prussia was originally a vassal of the Kingdom of Poland. It gained sovereign independence during the Great Elector's time, and its territory was outside the Holy Roman Empire, hence he could be crowned king there. The Kingdom of Prussia became known for its efficient administration, powerful military, and strict discipline, often called a barrack state. King Frederick William I, the Soldier King, reigned 1713 to 1740, further expanded the army, practiced strict economy, and strengthened the bureaucracy, accumulating strength for Prussia's expansion. Frederick William I's son, Frederick II, Frederick the Great, reigned 1740 to 1786, was one of the most influential monarchs in Prussian history. He was an enlightened despot deeply influenced by Enlightenment thought, as well as an outstanding military commander and statesman. Shortly after ascending the throne, he launched the War of the Austrian Succession, 1740 to 1748, seizing the prosperous region of Silesia from the Habsburg monarchy. In the subsequent 7 Years' War, 1756 to 1763, Prussia faced a coalition of Austria, France, Russia, and other powers, at one point teetering on the brink of collapse. However, Frederick the Great, with his military genius and tenacious will, ultimately retained Silesia and elevated Prussia to the ranks of European great powers. Frederick the Great also carried out a series of domestic reforms, such as judicial reform, promotion of agriculture and commerce, advocacy of religious tolerance, and encouragement of culture and arts. He maintained close ties with Enlightenment thinkers like Voltaire, and Berlin and Potsdam's Sanssouci Palace became centers of Enlightenment culture. During Frederick the Great's reign, Prussia and Austria, the Habsburg monarchy, constituted the two major rival powers within Germany, the so-called German dualism, Deutscher Dualismus. Although Austria still held the nominal title of Holy Roman Emperor, its ruling focus had gradually shifted to its hereditary lands, Austria, Hungary, Bohemia, etc. 18th century Germany, besides the rise of Prussia, was also a period of flourishing Enlightenment, Aufklärung. Thinkers like Kant, Lessing, and Herder made outstanding contributions in philosophy, literature, and history. Immanuel Kant's critical philosophy, proposing the idea that man is not a means, emphasized human reason and autonomy, profoundly influencing Western philosophy. Literary giants like Goethe and Schiller initiated Germany's Sturm und Drang, Storm and Stress, Movement and Classical Period, their works filled with the pursuit of individual liberation and humanism. However, beneath the brilliance of Enlightenment thought, Germany's political reality remained one of fragmentation and absolutism. Most states were still ruled by absolute monarchs, social hierarchies were rigid, and the rights of ordinary people were limited. The Holy Roman Empire was long a mere shadow of its former self. This fragmented situation and anachronistic social structure made Germany particularly vulnerable to the impending shock of the French Revolution and Napoleonic Wars. In 1789, the French Revolution erupted, and the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity swept across Europe like a storm, heralding a new chapter in German history. Chapter 4: The Napoleonic Storm, National Awakening, and the Establishment of the German Empire, 1789 to 1914. The French Revolution and the subsequent Napoleonic Wars had a cataclysmic impact on the German states. In the early stages of the Revolution, German intellectual circles generally viewed the French Revolution with sympathy and anticipation, believing it would bring freedom and reform. However, as the revolution radicalized and France expanded outwards, this attitude gradually shifted to fear and hostility. Napoleon Bonaparte's rise completely reshaped the political map of Germany. During the Napoleonic Wars, French armies repeatedly defeated the coalition forces of German states like Austria and Prussia. In 1803, under Napoleon's direction, the Reichsdeputationsschluss, final recess of the Imperial Diet, was passed, leading to a large-scale territorial reorganization of the Holy Roman Empire. Many small ecclesiastical territories, imperial knightly lands, and imperial free cities were annexed by larger states, especially Bavaria, Württemberg, and Baden, which had allied with France, significantly enhancing their territories and power. This reform objectively simplified Germany's political map, creating certain conditions for future unification, but it also further weakened the empire's structure. In 1806, under Napoleon's pressure, 16 German states seceded from the Holy Roman Empire to form the Confederation of the Rhine, Rheinbund, accepting Napoleon's protection. On August 6th of the same year, Holy Roman Emperor Francis II was forced to renounce the title Holy Roman Emperor, retaining only the title Emperor of Austria, which he had already proclaimed for himself as Francis I of Austria in 1804. Thus, the Holy Roman Empire, which had lasted for nearly 1,000 years, was formally dissolved. Prussia suffered a disastrous defeat by the French at the Battle of Jena-Auerstedt in 1806, forced to cede territory, pay indemnities, and accept French military occupation. This crushing defeat profoundly shook Prussia and spurred its internal reform movement. Under the leadership of reformers like Stein, Hardenberg, Scharnhorst, Gneisenau, and Humboldt, Prussia undertook a series of significant reforms known as the Prussian reforms. These included abolishing serfdom, implementing municipal self-government, military reforms, establishing a reserve system, fostering national military preparedness, and educational reforms, such as founding the University of Berlin, emphasizing scientific research and academic freedom. These reforms aim to enhance national strength by liberating social vitality and improving national quality, laying the foundation for Prussia's future revival and German unification. Napoleon's occupation and rule over Germany also ignited German national consciousness. Works like Fichte's addresses to the German nation called upon the German people to unite, resist French servitude, and strive for national independence and unity. This burgeoning nationalist sentiment reached its zenith in the Battle of Nations at Leipzig, Völkerschlacht bei Leipzig, in 1813. The Allied forces of Prussia, Austria, Russia, and other nations defeated Napoleon in this battle, marking the end of Napoleonic rule in Germany. After Napoleon's defeat, the Congress of Vienna, 1814 to 1815, redrew the political map of Europe. On the German question, the Congress decided to establish the German Confederation, Deutscher Bund, a loose alliance of 39, later 38, independent German states, including parts of Austrian and Prussian territory. Its main institution was the Federal Diet in Frankfurt, chaired by Austria. The German Confederation was not a unified state. Member states retained their sovereignty, and the Confederation's powers were very limited, primarily aimed at maintaining internal stability and order in Germany, preventing any single state, especially Prussia, from becoming too powerful and defending against external threats, especially from France. The decades following the Congress of Vienna are known as the Restoration period, or the Metternich system era. The German Confederation, under the leadership of Austrian Chancellor Metternich, pursued conservative policies, suppressing liberal and nationalist movements. Censorship, political police, and university surveillance created a politically repressive atmosphere. However, liberal and nationalist ideas continued to spread clandestinely, and calls for political reform and national unification grew louder. Economically, Prussia took the lead in establishing the German customs union, Deutscher Zollverein, in 1834. Most German states, except Austria and a few others, joined this union. The customs union eliminated tariff barriers between member states and unified customs regulations, greatly promoting internal trade and economic development in Germany, laying an economic foundation for future political unification. The Industrial Revolution also began to unfold in German regions, especially in the Rhineland, Ruhr area, and Saxony, where coal, steel, and railway industries developed rapidly. In 1848, influenced by the February Revolution in France, a wave of revolutions swept across Germany. Uprisings and demonstrations erupted everywhere, demanding democratic reforms, freedom of the press, a constitution, and national unification. Under revolutionary pressure, monarchs in various states were forced to make concessions and appoint liberal cabinets. In May of the same year, popularly elected representatives from all states convened the National Assembly, Frankfurter Nationalversammlung, in St. Paul's Church in Frankfurt, aiming to draft a unified German constitution and establish a unified German state. After lengthy debates, the Frankfurt National Assembly adopted a constitution that included basic human rights and a constitutional monarchy. On the issue of national unification, there was a debate between the Greater German solution, including the German parts of Austria, and the Lesser German solution, excluding Austria, led by Prussia. Ultimately, the Lesser German solution prevailed. In March 1849, the Assembly offered the imperial crown of Germany to King Frederick William IV of Prussia. However, Frederick William IV, believing this crown was picked up from the gutter, refused to accept authority from commoners. Coupled with opposition from Austria and some larger states, and the division and weakening of revolutionary forces, the Frankfurt National Assembly ultimately failed, and the 1848 revolution came to an end. Although the 1848 revolution failed to achieve German unification and democratization, it profoundly influenced the course of German history. It raised popular political consciousness, exposed the complexity and difficulty of German unification, and further highlighted Prussia's leading role in the German unification issue. In the 1850s, King William I of Prussia ascended the throne in 1861, appointed Otto von Bismarck as Minister-President, Prime Minister. Bismarck was a staunch conservative and a master of realpolitik, determined to achieve German unification under Prussian leadership through dynastic wars, famously stating it would be achieved by iron and blood, Eisen und Blood. Bismarck's unification project proceeded in 3 steps. Danish War, 1864 Prussia, allied with Austria, defeated Denmark and seized the duchies of Schleswig and Holstein. The issue of these duchies' administration became a pretext for Prussia to provoke conflict with Austria. Austro-Prussian War, 1866 Prussia, with its efficient army and advanced weaponry, like the Dreyse needle gun, swiftly defeated Austria at the Battle of Sadova, or Königgrätz. After the war, the German Confederation was dissolved. Prussia annexed some North German states and, in 1867, established the North German Confederation, Norddeutscher Bund, headed by Prussia, excluding Austria from German affairs. The North German Confederation had its own constitution and parliament, effectively becoming a unified federal state. Franco-Prussian War, 1870 to 1871. Bismarck skillfully used the Spanish succession crisis and the EMS dispatch incident to provoke French Emperor Napoleon III into declaring war on Prussia. Driven by nationalist sentiment, the South German states joined forces with the North German Confederation. The Prussian-led forces decisively defeated the French at the Battle of Sedan, capturing Napoleon III. The victory in the Franco-Prussian War immensely boosted German national pride and cleared the final obstacles to German unification. On January 18, 1871, in the Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles, King William I of Prussia was proclaimed German Emperor, becoming the first emperor of the German Empire, Deutsches Reich, sometimes referred to as the Second Reich. German unification was achieved under Bismarck's iron and blood policy. The unified German Empire was a federal constitutional monarchy composed of 25 states, including 4 kingdoms, 6 grand duchies, 5 duchies, 7 principalities, 3 free Hanseatic cities, and the imperial territory of Alsace-Lorraine. Prussia held a dominant position within the empire. The King of Prussia was also the German Emperor, and the Prussian minister-president usually also served as imperial chancellor. The imperial constitution granted the emperor considerable power. The imperial chancellor was appointed by the emperor and responsible to him, not to parliament. The imperial diet, Reichstag, elected by universal male suffrage, had legislative power and budget approval rights, but its power was constrained by the Federal Council, Bundesrat, composed of representatives from the member states. During his tenure as imperial chancellor, 1871 to 1890, Bismarck focused on consolidating the empire's unity and internal and external stability. Domestically, he implemented a series of policies. Kulturkampf, cultural struggle, an attempt to reduce the political influence of the Catholic Church, which was largely unsuccessful and exacerbated conflicts with Catholics, later forcing a reconciliation. Anti-socialist laws suppressed the growing socialist workers' movement and banned the activities of the Social Democratic Party. Social legislation. To alleviate social tensions and win the support of the working class, Bismarck's government also introduced the world's first social security system, including health insurance, accident insurance, and old age pensions. In foreign policy, Bismarck pursued a continental policy, aiming to maintain peace and the balance of power in Europe, isolate France, and prevent the formation of anti-German alliances. He built a complex and ingenious system of alliances, such as the League of the Three Emperors, the Dual Alliance, and the Triple Alliance, ensuring Germany's favorable position in Europe. After the establishment of the German Empire, the economy developed rapidly and the industrialization process accelerated. Germany achieved world leadership in steel, chemicals, electricity, and mechanical engineering. Famous industrial enterprises such as Thyssen, Krupp, Siemens, and Bayer emerged. Germany's scientific and educational levels were also among the world's best, producing many Nobel laureates. By the early 20th century, Germany had become Europe's leading and the world's second-largest industrial power. In 1888, William I died. His son, Frederick III, reigned for only 99 days before also dying of illness. William I's grandson, William II, reigned 1888 to 1918, ascended the throne. Young and impetuous, William II had serious disagreements with the experienced Bismarck on domestic and foreign policy. In 1890, Bismarck was forced to resign. After William II took personal control, German foreign policy shifted from Bismarck's continental policy to a more expansionist world policy, Weltpolitik, demanding Germany's place in the sun, Platz in der Sonne, and actively participating in colonial expansion and the scramble for overseas spheres of influence. Germany vigorously developed its navy, challenging British naval supremacy, which led to deteriorating Anglo-German relations. Germany's expansionist policies exacerbated conflicts with Britain, France, and Russia. Europe gradually formed 2 opposing military blocs, the Central Powers, centered on Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy, which later switched sides, and the Entente Powers, centered on Britain, France, and Russia. The arms race escalated, and the international situation became increasingly tense, with the Balkans becoming the powder keg of Europe. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was assassinated in Sarajevo, serving as the catalyst for the outbreak of World War I. The German Empire, a nation that had risen rapidly after unification, was about to be engulfed in an unprecedentedly brutal world war. Chapter 5: World Wars, Weimar Republic and the Nazi Shadow, 1914 to 1945. On July 28, 1914, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, marking the beginning of World War I. Germany, bound by its alliance with Austria-Hungary, declared war on Russia on August 1st and on France on August 3rd. The German army, following the Schlieffen Plan, attempted to swiftly defeat France by invading through Belgium, then redirecting forces to confront Russia on the Eastern Front. However, staunch Belgian resistance and rapid British intervention frustrated the German advance at the Battle of the Marne, and the plan for a quick victory collapsed. The Western Front subsequently descended into brutal trench warfare, with both sides entrenched along hundreds of kilometers of front lines, suffering heavy casualties in a protracted stalemate. On the Eastern Front, German forces achieved significant victories against the Russian army in battles such as Tannenberg, but Russia, with its vast territory and enormous human resources, continued to fight. The war also extended to the seas and colonies. Germany implemented unrestricted submarine warfare in an attempt to sever Britain's maritime supply lines, but this exacerbated tensions with neutral countries, particularly the United States. The war had a profound impact on German society. Initially, a fervent sense of patriotism and nationalism pervaded Germany, with all political parties, including the Social Democratic Party, supporting the government's war effort, forming what was known as Burgfrieden, Fortress Peace. However, as the war dragged on, casualties mounted and food and material shortages caused by the British naval blockade worsened. Popular weariness with the war grew. The economy was fully mobilized for war, and government control over the economy tightened. In 1917, Russia experienced the February and October revolutions, eventually withdrawing from the war, allowing Germany to concentrate its forces on the Western Front. However, the United States declared war on Germany in the same year, providing the Allies with substantial military and economic power. In the spring of 1918, the German army launched its final major offensive on the Western Front, the Kaiserschlacht or Spring Offensive. It initially made some progress, but ultimately failed due to depleted forces and Allied counterattacks. By the autumn of 1918, Germany's military defeat was inevitable. Domestically, hunger, poverty, and despair over the war triggered widespread strikes and unrest. In late October, sailors mutinied in Kiel, and the revolt quickly spread throughout the country, known as the November Revolution. On November 9th, Kaiser Wilhelm II was forced to abdicate and fled to the Netherlands. Social Democrat Philipp Scheidmann proclaimed a republic from the Reichstag building in Berlin. 2 days later, on November 11th, German representatives signed the Armistice Agreement in the Forest of Compiègne, France, ending World War I with the defeat of the Central Powers. Post-war Germany faced a grim situation of political turmoil, economic collapse, and social division. In January 1919, elections for a National Assembly were held, and the Social Democratic Party became the largest party. Due to instability in Berlin, the National Assembly convened in the small Thuringian town of Weimar and, in August of the same year, adopted the Weimar Constitution, formally ushering in the Weimar Republic period. The Weimar Constitution was a relatively democratic constitution, establishing Germany as a federal republic with a parliamentary democracy and guaranteeing basic civil rights. However, the constitution also had flaws, such as the president's power to dissolve parliament and exercise dictatorial powers in emergencies, Article 48, and a proportional representation system that tended to result in a proliferation of small parties and unstable governments. The Weimar Republic was burdened with a heavy historical legacy from the outset. On June 28, 1919, Germany was forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles. The treaty was extremely harsh on Germany. Territorial losses: Germany lost about 13% of its territory and 10% of its population, including Alsace-Lorraine returned to France, parts of its territory ceded to Poland, creating the Polish Corridor, which separated East Prussia from the rest of Germany, Belgium, Denmark, and other countries. The Rhineland was demilitarized and occupied by Allied forces, and the Saar region was administered by the League of Nations for 15 years. Germany also lost all its overseas colonies. Military restrictions. The German army was limited to 100,000 men, forbidden to possess heavy artillery, tanks, aircraft, or other offensive weapons. The navy was severely restricted and forbidden to have submarines. War guilt. Article 231 of the treaty, the War Guilt Clause, attributed sole responsibility for starting the war to Germany and its allies. Massive reparations. Germany was required to pay astronomical war reparations, the exact amount to be determined later by a reparations commission. The Treaty of Versailles provoked widespread humiliation and anger within Germany and was considered a dictated peace, Diktat. The stab-in-the-back legend, Dolchstoßlegende, also began to circulate, claiming that the German army was not defeated on the battlefield but was betrayed by revolutionaries at home, mainly leftists and socialists. This sentiment provided fertile ground for the rise of right-wing extremist nationalist forces. The early years of the Weimar Republic, 1919 to 1923, were marked by extreme political instability. There were uprisings from the left, such as those by the Spartacus League, which later became the German Communist Party, and attempts to overthrow the Republic from the right, such as the Kapp Putsch. Economically, due to massive reparations and dilapidated production, the German mark depreciated astrophysically, culminating in disastrous hyperinflation in 1923, with soaring prices and widespread hardship. France and Belgium, citing Germany's default on reparations, occupied Germany's industrial heartland, the Ruhr area, in 1923, further exacerbating Germany's economic crisis. During this turbulent period, a small party called the German Workers' Party, later renamed the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or Nazi Party, began its activities in Munich. Its leader, Adolf Hitler, with his inflammatory speeches and extreme nationalist, anti-Semitic, and anti-communist views, gradually attracted a following. In November 1923, Hitler launched the Beer Hall Putsch, Hitlerputsch, in Munich, attempting to seize power in Bavaria and then overthrow the Weimar Republic, but the coup quickly failed. Hitler was arrested and imprisoned, during which time he dictated Mein Kampf's My Struggle, systematically articulating his political ideology. From 1924 to 1929, the Weimar Republic entered a period of relative stability and prosperity, known as the Golden Twenties, Goldene Zwanziger. With the help of the American Dawes Plan, later the Young Plan, Germany's reparations issue was temporarily alleviated and the economy gradually recovered. Foreign Minister Gustav Stresemann, through pragmatic foreign policy, improved Germany's relations with Western powers, and Germany joined the League of Nations in 1926. Culture and arts also flourished unprecedentedly. Berlin became one of Europe's cultural centers, with significant achievements in the Bauhaus Design School, Expressionist art, and New Objectivity literature. However, this stability was fragile. In October 1929, the Wall Street stock market crash in the United States triggered a global Great Depression. The German economy, heavily reliant on American loans, was severely hit. Factories closed, unemployment surged, exceeding 6 million by 1932, and social contradictions intensified dramatically. The Weimar Republic's democratic system faced a severe test. Political parties struggled to reach consensus, governments changed frequently, and parliamentary democracy became paralyzed. President Hindenburg began to frequently use Article 48 of the Constitution, ruling by emergency decree, effectively weakening parliamentary power. The economic crisis and political turmoil provided an opportunity for extremist forces. The Nazi Party, exploiting popular resentment against the Treaty of Versailles, despair over the economic hardship, and fear of communism, rapidly gained massive support through large-scale propaganda, violent activities, and demagogic promises, such as solving unemployment and restoring national honor. In the Reichstag elections of 1930 and 1932, both the Nazi Party and the Communist Party saw significant increases in their seats, while traditional moderate parties lost ground, indicating a clear trend towards political polarization. On January 30th, 1933, under pressure from some conservative politicians and military figures, the aging President Hindenburg appointed Adolf Hitler as Chancellor of Germany, forming a coalition government. This marked the end of the Weimar Republic and the beginning of the Nazi era. After coming to power, Hitler swiftly took measures to consolidate power and establish a dictatorship. Reichstag fire. February 1933, the Nazis used this as a pretext to create panic about a communist threat and persuaded President Hindenburg to issue the Decree for the Protection of People and State, Reichstagsbrandverordnung, suspending basic civil rights provisions of the Weimar Constitution, providing a legal basis for Nazi suppression of political opponents. Enabling Act, Ermächtigungsgesetz, March 1933. This act granted Hitler's government the power to make laws without the consent of the Reichstag or the president, effectively giving Hitler dictatorial power. Gleichschaltung, coordination/Nazification. The Nazi Party brought all aspects of German social life under its control by dissolving trade unions, banning other political parties, except the Nazi Party, controlling the news media, and reorganizing local governments. Night of the Long Knives, Nacht der Langen Messer, June 1934. Hitler purged potential rivals within the Nazi Party, primarily the leadership of the SA, stormtroopers, consolidating his absolute authority within the party and gaining the support of the Wehrmacht, armed forces. Merger of presidential and chancellery offices. In August 1934, President Hindenburg died. Hitler merged the offices of president and chancellor into Führer und Reichskanzler, leader and Reich Chancellor, becoming Germany's sole supreme ruler. Nazi Germany, often referred to as the Third Reich, was a totalitarian state. The Nazi Party, through its vast organizational network, the Gestapo, secret police, the SS, Schutzstaffel, and other instruments of violence, exercised tight control and terror over society. Ideologically, the Nazi Party promoted racial superiority, especially Aryan racial superiority, anti-Semitism, the theory of Lebensraum, living space, and the Führerprinzip, leader principle. Under Nazi rule, Germany's economy experienced a period of recovery, and unemployment fell, largely due to large-scale public works projects, such as the Autobahn, rearmament, and forced economic intervention. However, this economic recovery came at the cost of people's freedom, the expropriation of Jewish property, and preparations for war. The Nazi regime's persecution of Jews was one of its most infamous crimes. Starting in 1933, Jews were progressively stripped of their civil rights, professions, and social status. The Nuremberg Laws of 1935 legally deprived Jews of German citizenship and forbade marriage between Jews and non-Jews. On November 9th to 10th, 1938, Kristallnacht, Night of Broken Glass, Nazi organizations launched large-scale violent attacks against Jews in Germany and Austria, burning synagogues, destroying Jewish shops, and beating and killing Jews. In foreign policy, Hitler pursued an aggressive expansionist policy aimed at overthrowing the Treaty of Versailles and acquiring living space. In 1935, Germany reintroduced compulsory military service and openly rearmed. In 1936, German troops reoccupied the demilitarized Rhineland. In the same year, Germany formed the Berlin-Rome Axis with Italy and signed the Anti-Comintern Pact with Japan. In March 1938, Germany annexed Austria, Anschluss. In September 1938, the Munich Agreement was signed, under which Britain, France, and other powers pursued a policy of appeasement, ceding the Sudetenland region of Czechoslovakia to Germany. In March 1939, Germany annexed the remaining Czech part of Czechoslovakia. Hitler's aggressive ambitions did not stop there. In August 1939, Germany signed the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, German-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact, with the Soviet Union, secretly dividing spheres of influence in Eastern Europe. On September 1st, 1939, German forces launched a blitzkrieg against Poland, and World War II began in Europe. Britain and France declared war on Germany. In the early stages of the war, the German army, with its blitzkrieg, lightning war, tactics, achieved astonishing victories. In 1939, occupied Western Poland. In the spring of 1940, occupied Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, and defeated France, leading to France's surrender. In the Battle of Britain, the German Luftwaffe failed to destroy the Royal Air Force, and plans to invade Britain were thwarted. In the Balkan Campaign, German forces gained control of Yugoslavia and Greece. On June 22, 1941, Germany tore up the German-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact and launched Operation Barbarossa, a massive invasion of the Soviet Union. German forces made rapid advances initially, but the failure at the Battle of Moscow marked the end of the Blitzkrieg. The Soviet Union's vast territory, harsh climate, and tenacious resistance bogged Germany down in a protracted and brutal war of attrition. As the war expanded, Nazi persecution of Jews escalated into a planned, systematic genocide, the final solution, and Losung, also known as the Holocaust. Millions of Jews, as well as other groups deemed inferior or undesirable by the Nazis, such as Roma, homosexuals, disabled people, political prisoners, etc., were subjected to inhuman slaughter in concentration camps and extermination camps such as Auschwitz, Treblinka, Sobibor. In December 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. The United States declared war on Japan, and Germany and Italy also declared war on the US, transforming the conflict into a truly global war. The years 1942 to 1943 were the turning point of the war. The Battle of Stalingrad, the Battle of El Alamein in North Africa, and shifts in the Battle of the Atlantic allowed the Allies to begin seizing the strategic initiative. In 1943, Allied forces landed in Italy, and Mussolini's regime collapsed. On June 6, 1944, Allied forces landed in Normandy, D-Day, opening a second front in Europe. The Soviet Red Army also launched continuous counteroffensives on the Eastern Front, gradually driving German forces out of Soviet territory. Facing a two-front war, Germany's defeat was certain. Hitler, however, fought on stubbornly, implementing total war and calling for national resistance. German cities suffered massive strategic bombing by the Allies, resulting in heavy losses. On July 20th, 1944, some German military officers attempted to assassinate Hitler and overthrow the Nazi regime, the July 20th plot, but it failed, and the participants faced brutal reprisals. In the spring of 1945, Allied forces advanced into Germany from both east and west. On April 30th, on the eve of the Soviet Red Army's capture of Berlin, Hitler committed suicide in the Führer bunker. On May 8th, the day, Germany surrendered unconditionally. World War II in Europe came to an end. World War II brought unprecedented disaster to Germany and the world. Tens of millions died, and countless cities were reduced to rubble. The crimes of Nazi Germany, especially the Holocaust, became one of the darkest chapters in human history. After the war, Germany faced not only material reconstruction but also moral reflection and the burden of historical responsibility. A divided, occupied Germany was about to emerge from the shadow of war and begin a new historical chapter. Chapter 6: Division, Reunification, and Challenges of a New Era, 1945, present. The end of World War II marked the complete downfall of Nazi Germany and ushered in a new era in German history, full of challenges and transformations. The entire territory of Germany was occupied by the Allied powers, the United States, Great Britain, France, and the Soviet Union. According to the decisions of the Potsdam Conference, July-August 1945, Germany's territory was significantly reduced. Areas east of the Oder-Neisse line, including Silesia, most of Pomerania, East Prussia, etc., were assigned to Poland and the Soviet Union, and millions of Germans were expelled from these regions as well as from Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and other countries. Germany itself was divided into 4 occupation zones, and the capital, Berlin, was also divided into 4 sectors, despite Berlin being located deep within the Soviet occupation zone. In the immediate post-war period, Germany faced the stun null, zero-hour predicament. Cities were in ruins, the economy was paralyzed, food was scarce, and millions of refugees and displaced persons awaited resettlement. The Allies implemented policies of denazification, demilitarization, democratization, and decentralization, referring to economic anti-monopoly measures in their respective occupation zones. From 1945 to 1946, the Nuremberg trials were held by an international military tribunal prosecuting major Nazi war criminals for war crimes and crimes against humanity. As the Cold War intensified, tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union grew, and the division of Germany gradually solidified. The Western occupation zones, American, British, and French, and the Soviet occupation zone diverged on political and economic development paths. In 1948, the three Western powers implemented currency reform in their zones, issuing the new Deutsche Mark. The Soviet Union reacted strongly by blockading all land routes to West Berlin, attempting to force the Western powers to abandon West Berlin. The Western powers responded by organizing a massive Berlin airlift, Berliner Luftbrücke, airlifting supplies to West Berlin for nearly a year, eventually forcing the Soviet Union to lift the blockade. The Berlin crisis further exacerbated East-West antagonism. In 1949, Germany was formally divided into two states. The Federal Republic of Germany, Bundesrepublik Deutschland, abbreviated BRD or West Germany, established on May 23, 1949, formed by the merger of the American, British, and French occupation zones, with its capital in Bonn. West Germany adopted a parliamentary democracy and a market economy system. Konrad Adenauer, Christian Democratic Union, became its first federal chancellor. The German Democratic Republic, Deutsche Demokratische Republik, abbreviated DDR or East Germany, established on October 7, 1949, consisting of the Soviet occupation zone, with its capital in East Berlin. East Germany adopted a socialist system and a planned economy, with the Socialist Unity Party of Germany, SD, formed by the merger of the Communist Party of Germany and the Eastern Organization of the Social Democratic Party, holding state power. Divided Germany became the front line of the Cold War in Europe. West Germany, with aid from the U.S. Marshall Plan, experienced rapid economic recovery and development, creating the so-called economic miracle, Wirtschaftswunder. West Germany actively integrated into the Western Bloc, joining the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, in 1955 and becoming a founding member of the European Economic Community, EEC, predecessor to the EU. Politically, the West German government pursued the Holstein Doctrine, refusing to recognize East Germany and imposing diplomatic boycotts on countries that did. East Germany, under Soviet control, established a highly centralized political system and a nationalized economic system. East Germany also achieved some economic success, becoming one of the more industrialized countries in the Eastern Bloc. However, compared to West Germany, East Germany's economic development and living standards lagged, political freedom was severely restricted, and the Ministry for State Security, Stasi, maintained tight surveillance over society. On June 17, 1953, a workers' uprising against SED rule broke out in East Berlin and other East German cities, but was suppressed by Soviet troops and East German police. Dissatisfied with East Germany's political and economic conditions, a large number of East German residents fled to West Germany through the then still permeable Berlin border. To stop this population outflow, the East German government erected the Berlin Wall, Berliner Mauer, on August 13, 1961, completely encircling West Berlin and becoming a symbol of the Cold War and German division. In the late 1960s, West German foreign policy began to shift. Social Democrat Willy Brandt, Chancellor from 1969 to 1974, pursued the Neue Ostpolitik, New Eastern Policy, advocating for improving relations with Eastern European socialist countries, including East Germany, through contact and dialogue and recognizing post-war borders, especially the Oder-Neisse Line. In 1972, West Germany and East Germany signed the Basic Treaty, mutually recognizing each other and agreeing to establish normal relations. In 1973, both German states joined the United Nations. Despite some détente, German reunification seemed remote at the time. However, history often takes unexpected turns. In the late 1980s, Mikhail Gorbachev of the Soviet Union promoted new thinking and reforms, perestroika and glasnost, leading to dramatic changes in Eastern European socialist countries. In 1989, Hungary opened its border with Austria, allowing large numbers of East Germans to flee to the west via Hungary. Within East Germany, popular demands for reform and freedom grew, with large-scale peaceful demonstrations, the Monday demonstrations, erupting in Leipzig and other cities. On November 9, 1989, Under immense domestic and international pressure, the East German government announced the opening of the Berlin Wall and the East-West German border. This news shocked the world, and tens of thousands of East and West Berlin residents flocked to the Berlin Wall, celebrating this historic moment together. The fall of the Berlin Wall symbolized the end of the Cold War and the dawn of German reunification. Under the active promotion of then West German Chancellor Helmut Kohl, and with the agreement of the United States, the Soviet Union, Great Britain, and France, the process of German reunification proceeded rapidly. In 1990, East and West Germany reached agreements on the political, economic, and legal aspects of unification. On September 12th of the same year, the four occupying powers and the two German states signed the Treaty on the Final Settlement with respect to Germany, also known as the 2+4 Treaty, formally ending the rights and responsibilities of the four powers over Germany and clearing the final international obstacles to German reunification. On October 3, 1990, the German Democratic Republic officially acceded to the Federal Republic of Germany, and Germany was reunified after more than 40 years of division. Berlin once again became the capital of a unified Germany. Unified Germany faced enormous challenges, particularly the economic transformation and social integration of the former East German regions. The West invested massive sums in the East for infrastructure development, enterprise restructuring, and social security. Despite significant achievements, disparities in economic development, employment rates, and mentalities still existed between East and West, often referred to as the wall in the head, Mauer im Kopf. In foreign policy, unified Germany continued to pursue a policy of European integration, commitment to peace, and multilateral cooperation. Germany is a core member of the European Union and a founding member of the Eurozone, playing a crucial role in EU decision-making and development. Germany has also actively participated in UN peacekeeping operations and has taken on increasing responsibility in international affairs. From 2005 to 2021, Angela Merkel, Christian Democratic Union, served as Federal Chancellor of Germany, becoming the first female chancellor in German history and one of the longest-serving chancellors since reunification. During Merkel's chancellorship, Germany successfully navigated the 2008 global financial crisis and the subsequent European sovereign debt crisis, maintaining relative economic stability and growth. Germany also played an important role in global issues such as climate change and the refugee crisis. The 2015 European refugee crisis, during which Germany accepted a large number of refugees, sparked widespread domestic and international debate. Entering the second decade of the 21st century, Germany and the world face new challenges. The rise of populism and extremism, international trade frictions, digital transformation, energy transition, an aging population, and profound changes in the geopolitical landscape, such as Russia's war against Ukraine. Germany's energy policy, particularly its reliance on Russian natural gas and the phasing out of nuclear power, became a focus of domestic and international attention. German history is an epic filled with dramatic turns and profound lessons. From the Teutonic tribes in the forest to the glory and division of the Holy Roman Empire, from the flames of the Reformation to the rise of Prussia, from the disasters of two world wars to the division and reunification of the Cold War, and to its important role on the European and world stage today. In the course of history, the German people have demonstrated their creativity, discipline, and resilience, but have also experienced periods of confusion and madness. Reflection on history, especially a profound reckoning with Nazi crimes, has become an important part of modern German national identity. Today, Germany remains the engine of the European economy and a cornerstone of political stability. It continually explores its position in a changing world, striving to find a balance between safeguarding national interests, fulfilling international responsibilities, and upholding its values. The story of Germany will continue to be written.
Otro.
The long scroll of German history is filled with glory and sorrow, creation and destruction, division and unity. It is like a mirror, reflecting the brilliance and darkness of humanity and inspiring us with the preciousness of peace and the power of reconciliation. From ancient Germanic tribes to the modern Federal Republic, this land has witnessed too many vicissitudes. To understand Germany is to understand an important dimension of European, and indeed, world history. We hope today's narrative has given you a deeper understanding of this complex and fascinating country. If you enjoy our content, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We will bring you more exciting historical stories in the future. Thank you for listening.